Thank you for signing up and showing up. And
Sure.
for now, it's just going to be you and me. So let's just kind of dive into it. Tell me a little bit more
Okay.
about what's going on with you, and what are some of the dilemmas that you're facing, and problems, and questions that you've got.
So for me, my background is I'm originally from I'm currently living in Oregon, Portland, Oregon area, metro area, but I'm originally from New Mexico, and the biggest company there in Albuquerque area, Rio Rancho area, was Intel Corporation. So
Of course, right.
I went to Albuquerque Technical Vocation Institute, graduated in 1986 with a technical certificate in digital electronics. Worked for a few years for a different company, and then was able to get on with Intel for 31 years. And yeah, just recently in the last several months, 8 months, 9 months, they went through a horrible situation. How you probably heard about it in the news and
Sure.
stuff. And so they offered a severance package, right? And after 31 years, I decided that was probably my best chance of getting something for 31 years of
Yeah.
effort, right? So I went ahead and took the package. Now what I'm finding is that, man, this job market is just horrible, especially for
Yeah.
technical people like me.
Yeah.
Their jobs just are very non-existent, and the employers out there are very picky, and so very
Yes.
selective. So I'm
Yes.
kind of in a quandary now, trying to figure out what I want to do. So
Yeah.
kind of
I hear
get
you.
some insights from you guys and some information. So that's kind of where I'm at.
It's great. Well, I'm glad you're here. Hi, Jason. Welcome. Good
Hi,
to see
John.
you.
Yeah,
Uh,
nice to see you as well.
Jeff, what's up? Good to see you. So, Lino, it's interesting. I mean, Intel had such a great run, and over the last 5, 10 years, it's been such a strange decline for that
Yep,
company. You'd have thought that Intel was completely bulletproof,
I
and
agree.
I think it's a great lesson when we look at the Magnificent Seven or the Fangs or whatever you want to call
Mhm.
them, to realize that no one is immune from disruption
That's right.
and shifts in the marketplace. Caroline, great to see you.
Hello. Hey, good to drop in. And just want to mention I've been working with Steve Johnson, so on AI, and
Steve
I'm
Robinson.
Excuse me, Steve Robertson, and I'm just finishing up an 8-week course that I've been auditing at CSTU on AI in digital marketing, or basically AI taking over everything.
Well, we'll
Um,
talk about it.
and
Yeah.
with Andreas Ramos. And I just wanted to drop this. Somebody just sent this to me, so I wanted to drop it in the chat for anyone who's interested in where the protests will be tomorrow.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Great. Thank you so much. What a week in what a year, right? I mean, it just never stops.
Well, I always like to say, and I used to laugh about this a long time ago. There's an ancient Chinese curse that goes, "May you live in interesting times," because of course, in China has a history of all kinds of military conflict and everything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
people wanted to live in quiet.
Right. Right.
I used to think it was funny a long time ago. Now I'm
Right.
like, yeah, we're in it.
Now, yeah, you're reaping the benefits. Yeah, I mean, it's like boredom. What happened to boredom? That sounds great. And I think that applies. It certainly applies. I don't want to kind of, get in. There's enough discourse on the politics. We don't really have to get into that today. But it certainly has spilled over into the job market and into, I think, the general anxiety that we're all feeling around where to go, how to get there, if there is even a there anymore. I find myself kind of scrolling through LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys saw my most recent newsletter article, but uh, it's hard to kind of keep the cynicism from leaking through in what's going on. So. Let's just kind of catch up a little bit. Jason, good to see you. What's going on in your world?
Yeah, so I'm just coming off of a job at Sega, working in product marketing for Sonic the Hedgehog. And
Heard of him.
yeah, and I'm actually thinking about a career change. Um, kind of ironically to local government. Now might not be the best time, but it is.
Well, or the best time, actually, when you think
Yeah.
about it another way. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Um, so, doing some exploration there, trying to talk to some folks through UCLA, Anderson, who are working for the city of Los Angeles, get some thoughts from them. There don't seem to be many jobs currently out there that would seem to fit for me. So I'm also, in the middle of that exploration, but also kind of as a plan B strategy, relying a little bit more on my tech background to maybe look at jobs in the tech space as well in product
Right.
marketing. So
Right. Right.
that's kind of me in a nutshell. That's where I'm at the moment.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to circle back to you, but I also want to bring Jeff into the conversation. If you're willing to, come on camera and share what's going on with you, even if you're just here to listen.
Hey, folks, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I suppose I'm here to listen, but I'm actually kind of like right in the throes of interviewing for a different sort of job, but sort of in the same kind of a different industry, but in the same vein, and encountering a lot of the same kinds of headwinds maybe that other folks are looking at now. It's taken me a few months to kind of get through a few different a few different goes through the interview process and all that. Hasn't panned out yet. In my spare time, I guess, which I've got more of now, been kind of doubling down on the workflow approach to AI, not just, generative AI, spit out this, create a cover letter for that or whatever, but more trying to build the kinds of tools for myself that I'll want to use in project management, and kind of working with product development folks, and really trying to position myself as kind of an actually experienced expert in, at least as much as anybody can say that at this point, right? To use some of these tools to really accelerate what I can offer to the next folks that I end up working with. So, I'm doing a lot of like retrofitting and sort of saying, hey, ChatGPT or whatever, based on all the things that we've been talking about, you and me, Mr. Robot Man. What do you say I would use this software to attack this type of website or this type of application development project?
Right.
And it's shocking how insightful it can be, how much it really does accelerate your ability to imagine the whole scenario and say, like, this is what it would look like, this is the software tools you'd use, this is the scheduling you'd set up, this is the way you would do project management, or this is the way you'd run your, just, it's kind of amazing. So if I can generalize a little bit, it would be to say that, like, it's really helpful if you can just get your brain used enough to the chat in the chat GPT, the actual relationship, as weird as it is.
Yeah.
And sort of go with the idea that you're building up this cache of knowledge,
Right.
and then really having it reflect back to you, hey, these 99,000 things about me at this point, because I've been talking with you for months. How would I go about doing this? Or what, based on, it goes way beyond just saying, write me a good cover letter based on my resume, right? It's
Yes.
taking that and
Yeah.
multiplying by 100. So it's a really interesting process, and I'm waiting to kind of really be able to use that to multiply my results in a new organization.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that I think probably certainly Caroline, I count myself in the same camp. I think the big revelation of the past few months, particularly as we're getting into GPT-4 and Gemini 2.5 and some of these really advanced iterations of the tools, it's becoming a lot more interactive and a lot less kind of strictly transactional with the LLMs. So I'd love to hear more about your journey here, because I've also experienced this sense of, and I'm sure this is a very familiar analogy that that you're hearing, which is if you had a PhD intern, right? That is the resource that the LLMs are giving us now, to have this really smart, really organized source of data and organization to kind of put some perspective on all of the inchoate data that you're feeding in.
Yes.
Right. So the idea that and I'm working on this too, kind of working on my kind of life narrative to put into the GPT to be able to address it like this kind of free-form database and say, okay, based on everything that you know about me, let's strategize. Right.
I think that's just, if I can tail onto that just a little bit. I think I've always struggled with this idea that I've been aware of for years, literally saying like, build a second brain, you know, get Notion, get some other, you know, big, ugly software, and it's going to let you take all of your Apple notes, you know, all of your notes to self, all of your emails to self, all of your stuff. And as you just said, you know, sort of your unstructured data, and magically it will, I don't know, like I've never really been able to
use it as the resource to recombine it in various ways. The other thing is understanding that the various versions of these platforms are totally different. Apparently, ChatGPT 4.0, its O3 is more advanced, and there's Gemini Pro. And there's other versions of Gemini. You can go up from there, like $250 a month and more. There's I forget. I have to look at my notes to see what it is. But I put in Andreas Ramos. I put in his website, andreas.com, in the chat, because I just got through an 8-week program. He's the adjunct professor. He does all the SEO for Stanford and MIT and Harvard, and he teaches AI to executives and stuff, and he was literally, stuff was changing on a daily, sometimes hourly basis, and he'd be revising his slides and revising, and he, you know, it's just, and he's got connections at Google and at all these places, and it's like, yikes. They don't know how it's doing what it's doing. That's the other thing. They have no clue.
That's a whole other question.
I just want to tail on that just also just for a second. It's like what I was getting at really was with my own building of the unstructured database is that I've always like, oh, where do I start? And then I never start. Right. So then a year goes by and a year goes by. So I'm like, I can't take that approach with AI. So you start talking to it and feeding it stuff, and it does what it does. And like, yes, there's differences across the different LLMs and the different, you know, developing technologies. But I'm like, I don't know how much utility there is in becoming a connoisseur of the different flavors out there. Meanwhile, I haven't used it for anything. You know what I mean? Like easily, like if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, oh, I want to be, you know, some kind of commenter on, you know, Substack, and I'll give everybody the updates every week or something. And I tried to do that like to my own education, and I realized that like it was always going to be a fire hose. And ultimately, I don't know, I would end up being like a fanboy for all the big tech bros. And I'm like, I don't want to be an advertisement for the different flavors. I want to be a user, and you know, I want to capitalize on what it lets you individuals do pretty easily. So I'm super interested to know, like, if you've got particular sort of reasons to use this or that LLM, but I'm like, I don't even know if I have time and patience to like port all of my stuff over to 2 or 3 other, you know, engines and see if they come up with something different. It feels to me more like it's a relationship that you build, and I don't know if I have time to like hang out with multiple robots. So I mean, how do you crack that nut, you know?
Well, the key, I think, for all this, and I want to bring Bob and Phyllis into the conversation as well, so bear with me. But the important thing, and I want to stress this on our call, is how we use these tools to really bolster our career development and our ability to personalize the career search, career development process, including how we talk about ourselves, how we think about ourselves, what's out in the world that we need to pay attention to that makes sense for us personally, as well as the other two elements of my process, which are the networking and community building and the thought leadership. So really, if there is a way of using that PhD intern to bring some insight onto how we can personalize all three of those elements, and use those to enhance the package that we're offering, help us actually enhance the way we think of our own value in this. That's kind of the secret sauce, the holy grail of this process for me. So that said, Phyllis, how are you? What's going on? Welcome to the call.
Hi. You're on my schedule every month, and I never quite come to get here. But then the AI, first of all, thank you for having this call. And the AI thing is something I'm very interested in. And to your question about multiple robots, last summer I spent a great deal of time learning about AI because I just didn't know anything about it. So I did a deep dive. And what I learned is there are many models. Obviously, you all know the different ones, the names, the cast of characters, but they each have different characteristics, and they each have to, and different levels of credibility too. And I find that everyone is on ChatGPT, and I find that's the biggest liar of all. So, they call it hallucinating. So, which I thought was hysterical when I learned that term. The other thing is that when I use it, and I use it sparingly only because I'm very old school and I'm a writer, but I'm learning to morph into it because it saves time. But when I use it at least 3 at the same time. Like I ask Chat, I'll ask Perplexity, I'll ask Claude, whatever, and compare it all and see what comes out best. And each one is completely different. It's even completely different each day that you ask it. That's the other thing. And they each have their strengths.
Right.
Another thing I wanted to say.
What have you find most useful, and why, and what circumstance? Curious to get your reflections, since you seem to be pretty steady user.
Steady user, I'm not. The other thing I wanted to say, just as a word of caution, and then I'll tell you, is I don't put personal information in. Like if I never put personal information. I'll say, what is it? So I'm a career coach myself at this point, but I'm also a content marketer. So I'll put in information for myself. Let's see. I just did it. Oh, so I just did it last night. Give me an email for following a sales lead. I have a version of myself that I wrote myself, and I want to test another version, see if it's better. So I put it in and say, give me something similar to this. And so I'll do that kind of thing, but never put in any kind of identifier in there. And as a career coach, what I'll do is I do a lot of people who are transitioning. So there was one, let's see, most recently there's a woman I'm working with who's an actress, and she wants to transition out. She's aging out of the whole industry there. And so I put in things about what are good career moves, second career moves for an actress. Then I'll refine it and I'll put in her strengths, or then I'll refine it and put it in a little bit of someone in this geography area. Never any identifier, but just build it and try and understand it, because the prompt engineering is one thing, but I don't think that you can get the prompt perfect right away. I think that it builds and it builds and it builds. So that's the way that
it's an iterative process. And there's something called a long prompt, which you can do a 5 or 10 page prompt. And I've learned about that in this course. But the thing is, then you can ask it to refine, and you ask it and you say, this is fine, and do this.
Right.
And so you keep doing that. And you're right, it's not deterministic, which means, unlike SEO, which converges on somebody can have the top slot on an ad. AI doesn't work that way. Every time you ask it, as you found, you get a different result. There is no such thing as an answer.
There is not, and I'll give you 2 important examples as to why people should be extremely wary. First of all, I have my daughter is taking some chemistry classes, and she had a tutor on the phone, and this tutor is very, very years and years of experience. They put in a real problem, like a math problem, to have AI solve it. And they looked at it, and I heard them and said, "That's wrong." And this guy is right. He prepares everybody for all these chemistry regions years and years and years and years. He's not anybody who's getting it wrong. And he said the AI got it wrong.
No,
So you must be very careful.
it's not good with numbers. It's not good with numbers yet.
And then the other thing is that I do some marketing for a home healthcare agency. It's a small boutique agency in New York. And so I just put in out of curiosity, just for some competitive research, I said, give me the top home healthcare agencies in New York. There are hundreds. And the agency that I work for came in as like the top two, three, something like that. That's not true. It's it's a small boutique agency. There's visiting nurse services, these huge ones. It's not true. So I don't know how that works either. The algorithm is so elusive to me that, on that, it's not true.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, Phyllis, but ChatGPT apparently has been recommending me to prospects. Gemini is not, but ChatGPT is.
That's your friend, Gemini's. So there's a whole thing. And then the other thing is that people are using this now as search engines because Google has gotten so unwieldy. You put in, it used to be the old days, you put in a Google, give me the top agencies or whatever it is, and you'd get data. Now they're so green, they have the sponsored links on top and the sponsored links on the bottom, and the middle is the organic stuff is so compressed. It's not really quality anymore, that people are turning to AI as a search engine. So that's good for marketers to know, but the consumer really needs to be aware that.
Well, search engines are going to go away. I mean, this is what I've been learning, that Google 2 years ago took all their top team that had been working on Google Analytics 4. They took them all and moved them to their AI team. So Google Analytics 4 hasn't been updated in a couple of years, and it's literally going to go. SEO as we know it is going away.
Interesting. So interesting.
And everybody, it's already started to shift. People are using AI for search, not.
Yes, and that's coming up.
And
that's coming up.
Google has invested hugely in AI. So it's between Google and Microsoft is what I just understood last night, because they have the Office platform. So they're in all the major companies. I mean, Microsoft has Copilot, even though they own 49% of OpenAI. They have their totally separate AI group, and then Google with Gemini Pro and all the other versions, they are so into major corporations because the advertising, and Microsoft's in the major corporations because of Office. They're the ones apparently going to be duking it out in the AI realm for the corporate market.
Wow.
and that leaves OpenAI.
Well, I'm seeing it as boots on the ground because, again, this home healthcare agency that I'm working for, the SEO, they put in a lot of money to SEO. They have just SEO. It's not paying off anymore. So they're taking
it won't.
all the chips.
It's going away.
And moving into PPC.
Going away.
Why would they? It's real. I'm seeing what you're saying.
Digital marketing is totally changing.
Right.
Yes.
So fascinating conversation. Getting a little bit off topic. I want to bring Bob and Eber into the conversation just to kind of say hello, find out what you guys are up to and what brings you to the call today. Bob, you want to start?
Hi there. My name is Bob Gerst. I am a retired HR executive with a company called John I. Haas. We're the largest hop producer in the world. And I have a podcast that I do called People in Transition. It's for people, college senior to first job, between jobs, jobs to entrepreneurs, and jobs to retirement. I probably should have listened closer to the podcast on the jobs to retirement, because if I were to grade myself, I'd probably give myself, I'm doing a C+ job on being an effective retiree. But I'm there, so you deal with it. I have tried to come to John's each month of these, and Phyllis, like you, it's on my calendar, and then something happens. But I think I make 3/4 of them, something like that. And this topic interests me. I have to tell you that now that I'm doing things more on my own versus having a team, here's what I find, and I can't remember who it was that talked about it. I don't want to know all the flavors of the month of different styles, just as I don't want to know all the flavors of the month of podcast editing tools, because there's a gazillion of them. That does me no good whatsoever. For good or bad, I picked ChatGPT, and this is how I use it as, again, kind of a sole proprietor. Very similar to when I had my staff and we sat around and we brainstormed things. No one idea was correct necessarily. No one idea was necessarily bad. It was part of the iterative process that you do when you brainstorm an issue, whether it's writing a paragraph or anything else. And what I find the benefit of the ChatGPT is to take the place, because I no longer have that staff, of helping me in terms of that brainstorming process. And I don't accept it at face value, but it does serve as a great continuation of my thinking about whatever the topic might be. So I would put ChatGPT equals brainstorming.
Right. Eber, what's going on with you?
Hello, John. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm from São Paulo, Brazil. I'm assistant engineer working in financial sector. Currently, have been working in systems, applications, and IT service. So it's been a very good year for me and for my career. I've studied a lot AI and stuff, data. So my pleasure to stay with you guys in this community. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of agendas that I want to cover on the call. One is just to tap back into some of the questions that particularly Lino and Jason have, as they are specifically in their transition process right now. But I also, as I said on the announcement for the call, I want to start mapping out how the Mid-Career Lab can be a more effective focus and hub for all of you and everyone else who is part of the community. There are about 150 odd people. And I'm at a bit of a crossroads in terms of how this can be most useful in this very crowded and noisy and uncertain world that we are trying to navigate. So back to Lino and Jason, just for a few minutes, and to get the benefit of those of you who are on the call and thoughtful about these kinds of things. And Phyllis, as a fellow coach, I'm love to get your thoughts and suggestions for these guys as well. What are the big questions that you guys have right now about your next steps? What's working? What's not working? And how can we help you go and fulfill your goals here?
So I guess, or Jason, why don't you go ahead and lead off?
Okay, thanks, Lino. Yeah, good question, John. For me, mentioned that I was looking to transition maybe into local government.
Tell us a little bit more about your background and why that, because that's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
Why that? Why local government?
So
what is the target there? Because that's a broad area.
Yeah, sure. So just to give you a little bit of background, I have 20 plus years in the video game publishing space. And it's been wonderful, but this kind of transition time in my career has afforded me the opportunity to think about, well, what do I really want to do? And I want, I think I'd rather be working for the people, so to speak, than the shareholders at this point in my career. So what that looks like, I think an ultimate goal for me would be, and sometimes it's scary to talk about goals, but An ultimate goal for me would be elected mayor of Los Angeles at some point. And so, what is the path to get there? And what I'm wrestling with, is not finding a lot of job openings right now at City of LA that kind of match my skills and background. And so I've been wrestling with the idea of, well, what else can I do to, if say I keep a job in technology, are there things that I can do outside of that to kind of prepare me for that path to mayor, so to speak, right? Um, and that's really the crux of where I am at the moment. Um, yeah, is that the kind of background you were looking for, John?
Sure. So it's just some questions on that.
Yeah.
Uh, 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 the government itself has many components and many feeders and satellite entities.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about local government, the idea of working for the people, not for the corporation,
Yeah.
that has a lot of possibilities through nonprofits, through for-profit organizations as well that are focused in the space that, for whatever reason, have a stake in local government. Policy questions, bureaucracy issues, getting things done, and in your own industry, there are questions that relate to incentives, taxation, zoning, et cetera, to facilitate the conduct of business. So one thing I would suggest, and I want to open this up to the floor, is to look at from the Sega perspective, coming
Yeah.
out of Sega, how does Sega, what is the governmental relationship or the governmental affairs office look like at Sega? And how does that company deal with local government, government generally, perhaps locally, and start to kind of build out some prototypes around what are the
Mm,
different kinds of companies? And I think particularly for this kind of transition, your personal connections are extremely important. So if you haven't already started to browse through LinkedIn and within your first two connection levels for people who are either involved in government, involved in policy issues which affect government regulation, taxation, et cetera, that would be a place to start to get into some conversations, because ultimately people are going to say to you, oh, with your background, you might want to consider going in this particular direction.
right. I think those are some great suggestions. Yeah.
So those conversations are really important. Everyone else, jump in, please. Phyllis, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this.
Well, to become a mayor of Los Angeles, I think is a very noble and ambitious goal.
Yeah.
The way that I would think about it, I don't know where you are in your career or anything like that, or where you stand, but I would look, if it were me, I would look and see what it took for the last 10 mayors to get there
Yeah.
and try and figure out, where you fit in. I think that the mold has been broken at this point where you don't have to follow a certain political trajectory to actually make it in a public office at this point in time. But I think the thing that does stand for all of time is that you need people of influence to back you. And
Yeah.
and that's something, I mean, so networking would be extremely key. So I'd look at biology, I'd look at evolution, I'd look at networking opportunities.
I would just I'm glad you brought that up, Phyllis, because I think I kind of disregarded your idea about becoming mayor of Los Angeles. I kind of discarded it, really. Elective office being so fraught with problems.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that you're going to be most effective, that anyone in these days is being particularly effective as an elected representative, whether it is state assembly, mayor, whatever. Those are really hard. Those are really hard paths to go on.
Yeah.
And an interesting example comes to mind because you're in LA, right, Jason?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So there's a woman named Laura Friedman who has just been elected in the last election to take over Adam Schiff's congressional district. She's a Glendale, Burbank area resident. She actually comes out of the entertainment business. She was a film development executive for many, many years. Got into government by getting involved locally in Glendale with the Glendale City Council. She started going to meetings, started speaking up at meetings. For a couple of years, she was involved in all of these city council decisions as a resident, as a concerned citizen, and then decided to run for city council in Glendale. She was elected. From there, she was, I think, 1 or 2 years on the city council. She was elected mayor of Glendale for a while. And from that position, she was able to run for state assembly, and she served in the state assembly. So that was a career arc. And then when Schiff ran for Senate, she was one of a handful of candidates who threw their hat in the ring to run for his seat. And she was able by that time to have built up a network of political connections, got the right endorsements, was able to raise some funds, and she's also good on her feet, right? So she was really kind of primed for this. That's a personality trait which she may not have known that she had until she started trying out for this.
Yeah.
And so
John, it sounds like Jason should go take a look at her organization, see if he could join her organization to learn from what they're doing.
That's a possibility. But I think also this idea of kind of getting involved on the grassroots level, and there are countless people, and you should certainly kind of look at all of the people kind of coming up in whatever party you're interested in as to how they're getting off the ground and what are their initial involvements from an elected, as an elected official. But there are, again, other ways of doing this, right? There are plenty of other organizations. So I think rather than, I mean, if I were to advise you on this, the goal to me, it seems, is not about being mayor of Los Angeles. The goal is about making a certain impact. And you have to define what that impact is, where that is. You might think it is an impact on childhood, on education, right, on senior services, on zoning, homeless, whatever the issues are. I would encourage you to kind of think strategically about, where do I want to make an impact? What really is what matters to me, and why does it matter to me? Maybe my family comes from a certain background. We struggled with this, or a relative of mine or a friend of mine had a particular issue. I'm working with a client right now who is, I found out 2 or 3 sessions in, is on the board of a nonprofit because of a guy that he knew in college who committed suicide, and this kind of spurred him to get involved in the cause that was at the root of this guy's suicide. And wow, I mean, that's an amazing kind of adjunct quality and concern to go along with his particular career. He wasn't putting these two things together. So I would encourage you to look at, from a personal standpoint, what is it that drives you, right? It's not about necessarily being mayor of LA. If 20 years from now you wind up as mayor of LA, well, good for you. But I think right now, right, there's something more immediate that's going to give you the purpose, right, and the drive to go out and do it.
And some of the things that you mentioned, John, it's other organizations of influence. It's not necessarily being a politician, but there's all these climate activist things. And I know there's a lot of actors and people with a lot of money in Hollywood who have their pet causes. So they have the money. So if there's a cause that you care about, and you find who's got the money, who's putting into it, and see what their organization is up to. Up here in the Silicon Valley in climate, there's billionaire Tom Steyer. I actually met him last August. I went to he was speaking, and I went and I met him there. Because of some technologies from my late husband that I'm trying to find the right home for. And again, he's been really committed to climate change for 15 years. and he made his money on Wall Street and in the financial sector. And he's one of the people who's on the progressive side. Most financial sector people are on the other end.
Right.
But so, and he's got a whole organization. He funds early stage climate tech companies. His new organization does that. So finding out what cause you are interested in, as John said, and then find who's putting money into that. Because obviously you're not a billionaire, you don't have the money, so you got to find who does in the area that you're interested in. Because whether it's politics or having influence, from what I can see, it takes a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent point.
I want to, before we move on to Lino, any further thoughts for Jason about some potential directions here as he explores this?
Well, I think that when I was saying that when he thinks that he wants to be a mayor, I assume that he knew that it would be a long road.
Sure.
And it's great. I like the way, John, you broke down the pieces to that long road. And again, it's very similar here. I have a family friend who got very active in the school board, and now he's a state assemblyman, and I'm not sure that's his end goal. But it's all about the small steps, as Caroline was saying. Also, you find something that resonates with you, and you keep going. And if you see that light at the end of the tunnel, even if it's 20 years from now, and you see that, and you keep making those steps that are resonant with your goal, resonant with your values, and you keep building your skills towards that, on that path to Oz, then, the sky's the limit.
Right. I appreciate that, Phyllis. Thank you.
I'm struck by how each of you have talked about this process, how similar it is to just finding any job.
Yeah.
It is relationships. It is, you're making certain you do your homework. It is, ensuring that you have built bridges in terms of it. And so whether it's an elected position or figuring out how to be an electrical engineer, it's going to be, I think, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Agreed. So Lino, let's pivot to you and see if we can give you something actionable to take away today.
Sure. So before everybody joined, I kind of gave a little bit of a synopsis of my background to John directly, and so I'm a 31-year veteran of one of the biggest semiconductor manufacturing companies in the world. I worked there from 28 years old until just this last year at 59 years old. So I'm going to be 60 years old next month, so I'm getting up in age. Whenever I put out a resume, so to speak, right, to another tech company in the area where I live, which is the Portland, Oregon metropolitan area, I'm just getting immediate thanks for putting in your application, and then 2 weeks later, oh, sorry, we've moved on to some other direction. So I'm kind of stuck in this situation where I suspect that my age and my many years of experience is actually not working for me, but working against me. And so I'm just trying to navigate the waters of this current, job market. Everything is changing. Like John had mentioned, LinkedIn, which I'm new to. Honestly, I had a LinkedIn account for many, many years, but I never did anything with it. I think that was probably part of my mistake. I'm not big on social media. I don't do anything on social media. I have a zero presence on social media other than LinkedIn. And so I just, put my nose to the grindstone. I put all my efforts on my career and making myself successful at a career which I shouldn't even have been successful in. I've never been one day in college in my whole life, and yet I was working as an engineer at Intel. So, I've done the things that many people who go in and get, degrees at good colleges want to do, but I never had the background from an educational perspective to be able to put on my resume saying, hey, I got an engineering degree at, name your college, right? And so now I'm finding two things that are against me: my lack of education, qualifications, and my age. And the years of experience, over 34 years of experience as in electronics. are actually working against me, it seems. And so I've been doing this since the beginning of the year. I took off 3 months. I took a severance package with the company I was working for, and so I took three months off at the end of the year last year, and then I've started seeking employment this year. But what I'm finding is that things have dramatically changed since when I last attempted to find a job. LinkedIn seems to be the thing. I've even registered with a couple of headhunter organizations, never even heard back from them, which is a surprise to me, because you would think that with 31 years of experience, they would find me interesting enough to at least to contact me and say hi and, hey, what are you looking for, or something along those lines. But no luck at all. I've been spinning my wheels for the last few months and just trying to maybe pick some people's brains on what should I try to do.
Yeah.
The final thing is that, like I said, I'm going to be 60 in a few days, and I'm getting close to retirement, and I really do want to retire. I mean, I don't want to be working for the rest of my life. I want to take time off with my wife. She's the same age as me. Once we hit retirement age, and do things, go see things, go visit places, and actually cut off work, hard cut off, not doing part-time, not doing anything else, no volunteering, just want to fill my life with experiences from that time on. So that's kind of me. It's kind of a little bit maybe less conventional than most people who are in this thing.
It's very familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So there couple of things. I want to kind of put the retirement thing on hold for a second.
Sure.
Just kind of talk about the pure job thing. So first of all, the company you work for is called Intel.
Yeah.
So right, I wouldn't kind of try to kind of hide that or dance around that. Working for Intel is a badge of some credibility, and I think that 30 odd years at Intel is a good thing, right? And it's not something that you want to hide, and it's something I think that you can certainly crow about and be proud of. But the other thing, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile right now, that I would say just two things off the top. One is that applying to open positions is a fool's errand. You're not going to get, even if you're younger, you're going to be in the situation of people that you see as you scroll through LinkedIn with 15, 20 years experience, who you would think are kind of in the prime sweet spot. They're getting ghosted on LinkedIn. They can't get any traction by applying for jobs. Again, it is about relationships. The other thing I would say, looking at your profile, is that employers want specialists, not generalists. And particularly with 30 years experience, they're going to look at you for a very narrow but very important set of skills and deliverables that you can offer. So in formulating your approach here, I would recommend that you look at narrowing down what you are offering and how you are talking about yourself to some very, very clear marketable solutions that are the right product market fit for you with your background for the industry that you are targeting, and really frame your conversations with people around that. Because I think part of the reason that you and other people are not getting traction is because no one knows what to do with you if you're a generalist, right? And gone are the days where you could say, I've got 30 years experience. I can do this, this, or this, put me to work. And a company would say, oh yeah, wow, a generalist. We can have them do all sorts of stuff. Not anymore. So I would just offer that, and then encourage everyone else on the call to weigh in with their thoughts as well on this for some encouragement.
You hit a huge important point, I think, John, in that you're not the only one at Intel in the last few years that has either left or considered leaving. And that represents a huge support group and an entrance group for you. You will not, in fact, the last statistic I saw was that less than 12% of all jobs are filled via completing an application, which let's just say that that's close to being accurate. That means that less than 12% of your time should be spent filling out applications. That 90% of your time should be, how do you milk those contacts at Intel, and how do you get those contacts either through Intel or through your own work through LinkedIn, to have an advocate inside of organizations that you want to work at, because it's going to be through those relationships, very similar to Jason and his wanting to be mayor. It's going to be those relationships that it's going to get you in. I went job searching at 59. You are 100% correct. Ageism is alive and breathing hard. What you need to do is have, from my standpoint, have that advocate inside that can say, yep, he's a forward thinker, hard charging, person. Oh, and by the way, he does have 31 years worth of experience. That's the kind of person that you want to have in. And those people from Intel will help you hugely find that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, same thing. First of all, just on a nuts and bolts level, I feel like you need to make sure that your resume is not automatically being rejected by the application tracking systems.
ATS.
And
that stuff is such nonsense. And I dropped in the chat about AI prompts from Mexico. There's two women here in Silicon Valley. They're career transformation partners, Julia and Liz. They will help you craft the right LinkedIn profile, which is really important. All the recruiters pay a ton of money to have access to everything on LinkedIn. So you have to understand how to craft your LinkedIn profile to show up on their radar. And they also work on resumes and stuff. And they're here in Silicon Valley, so they'll know exactly what's going on, in the tech sector. The other thing is I put in the chat about Phil Terry's job search councils, which is all free. He has a whole process, and he is in the whole project management field. And he's developed this process that he finally put into a book, and it's a whole all volunteer organization. It's the process, and it's an 8-week program. You join a job council with some six or seven other people, and they all help each other network and the whole thing. And it's not just for finding a job, but for going forward in your career. And they've had people from everything from kids out of college to senior VPs and top people use this process and do very well. So it's that kind of process. It's not the job I have now at Trina Solar wasn't posted anywhere. It was through an outside recruiter that they had. They liked what they saw. I've been on LinkedIn for 20 years. They liked what they saw on LinkedIn. I had a certain set of skill set, and then I interview well. So I was able to show them I could do what they wanted done.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'll take a look into that
information.
But
Liz and Julia at they call themselves career transformation partners now. It used to be Holland and Associates. They'll really can help, and you can get a half-hour free consultation with them first to see what's up.
Okay, perfect.
Lino, just a practical note. You have 15 connections on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that everybody from the past 30 years is a LinkedIn connection. So that's your first thing to do, is to get everybody in your Rolodex onto the platform with you, so that you can actually not just connect with them, but do you have a paid LinkedIn account?
No, I do not.
That's the first thing you do after the call. It's $30 a month. You should go for the LinkedIn Premium, the first level. That's going to allow you to see your first level connections. So your second level connections. That is an amazing resource for you to be able to, once you've gotten all of the people that onto LinkedIn, now you have access to their network. So that's going to be an enormous resource for you, particularly pivoting off of what everyone here is saying today. And I've love Bob's statistic, scary as it may be, that 90% of your action needs to be focused on the referral market, not on the job application market.
It's not. I just dropped my LinkedIn profile connection there. I'm happy to connect to everybody here, and just start connecting to everybody
Connect. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
and make sure you have a good profile shot with a smile on it.
Mhm. Okay.
And you know, it's what you put in your about section and your tagline up
Yep.
there. That's important.
Couple other things that I want to move on here in the few minutes we have left, but I have a lot of ambivalence about the open to work circle on your LinkedIn. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's a weak signal, and it actually makes you the target for scammers on LinkedIn these days, and it doesn't necessarily attract the right recruiters to your profile. So
Okay.
just a thought on that.
Okay.
And I think
Yeah,
that's,
John, while
yeah.
you're collecting your thoughts, you know, it's that green circle. I can get you as many people who swear by it as those that think that it does exactly yours, what you're talking about. It's kind of like, you know, I think it's a personal preference thing. I know people that I've coached that have gotten jobs, and they think that they got the job because a search firm, you know, that is strapped for time saw them right away, and they liked what
Right.
what they
Well,
saw.
actually, Bob, there is in your settings on LinkedIn, you can let just recruiters know
You are right.
you're actively interviewing now.
Very good.
They
comment.
look at that. Again, what
Yeah.
recruiters see and what the rest of us see is a little different. But there's a setting in there, and you want to set, Lino, you
Okay.
want to set that, letting recruiters know.
Very
Okay.
good
Yeah.
thought.
Just
Yep.
them. Okay, thank you for that. That's really good
Yeah.
information.
The
Appreciate
other
that.
question that I have for you, Lino, is about retirement, and
Yeah.
just for you to consider that you know you're going to be living a long time, and if you've got the money set away, put away for retirement, great. But if you're going to be living for another 25 or more years, maybe 30, maybe 35 years, do you want to be retired, not engaged in all that time? So I would, and it's not about, you know, volunteering. That's kind of like old school retirement, right? You kind of volunteer in retirement. I would advocate for something that is business based, but on your schedule. So if you can find a venue, a focus for your work that you really enjoy, where you are making a difference in people's lives, companies' lives through the work that you do, and you can scale that to whatever level of involvement you want, then you have the best of both worlds, right? You have the time that you want for yourself, for travel, for your you know, your relationship with your wife as you guys get older, but also you get the involvement and you get the engagement with business, with making a buck, with making, you know, people you know, changing people's lives. So just something to consider.
Sure. No, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that, John.
The final question I have for you guys in the couple of minutes we have left is feedback for me about the Mid-Career Lab. How would you like to see this community evolve? Is this something which, you know, are there a particular set of resources that you think we should do? Should I be offering workshops, more specific events? I want to figure out how to take this thing and really make it more meaningful, and ultimately, to be completely candid, be able to charge for it, but only if I'm providing value that's worth paying for. So love to get some feedback and ideas on that, certainly in the few minutes we have on the call. And then if you've got some thoughts and you want to send me a note, that would also be great.
I'll chime in real fast. This little session has been tremendously helpful for me. One idea for building out career labs is maybe think about having guest webinars from time to time and keeping it fresh with new ideas, new approaches, and you know, ongoing content for people that way. Just a thought.
Right. And would that be people who are experts, people who have, you know, changed their own careers, you know, all of it? I mean, what, any particular focus on what would attract you to sign up for that webinar?
Yeah, I might start with kind of larger categories that people slot into. So career changers, an expert on career changers could be someone that personally had a big career change and wants to tell their story, or could be an expert that helps people with career changing, but something in that theme, right? Then maybe something for career enhancers, content that slots in there, and you could do series that people could kind of tune into. It's just an idea,
Yeah, no, all good.
Yeah, I would
Anyone
say
else?
on my
Yeah.
podcast, I have two kinds of guests. One would be, kind of you, John, people that do coaching and understand the process and so forth. The other is actual people who have gone through job changes and so forth. And I have to say that if I look at the statistic, um, a mixture of those two really helps in terms of numbers of downloads. You can get too many coaches talking. Each one has their flavor of the month, that they want to talk about. And you get too many candidates. And sometimes they are not, sometimes it's just the luck of the draw in terms of how they found the job. But when you blend them together, I think that makes a pretty powerful. So take that for what it's worth.
Right. What about other resources? I'm in the process, for example, of going through all of my my blog articles and turning many of those into worksheets so that people can actually start using some of those skills and building some of those skill sets and using them in their careers, and kind of posting that on the site. Again, the question about workshops, the format of workshops, 1 hour workshop, a multi-day workshop. Jason, you're familiar with the program I did at UCLA, that kind of 6-week thing. Any thoughts about what kind of learning opportunities we can generate for ourselves within the community?
All the research that I've read is that people remember in the power of 3. So if you take any of your blogs that you have and condense them down and give me 3 things that I can do to be more successful today, that's the thing that I'm going to read. I'm probably not going to do a multi-hour or multi-day program, but I will all day long look at something that says do this, and do this, and you'll be further along. That'd be my suggestion.
Got it. Anyone else?
Well, just having a repository in your site for resources, but have it, as Bob said, really concise. For this kind of situation, here are the resources. Like I love to talk about Liz and Julia with the now they call it Career Transformation Partners, because if you need help with your LinkedIn profile and your resume specifically in that way, from a tech perspective, they're really, but having, assist, and this Phil Terry's job search councils, that is such an extraordinary program, and it's enormously helpful. I mean, there's the book and the process, and so, but people need to know about this stuff, and in a concise way. It's like having a resource section, and once it gets known, and the ability for other people to add to it, maybe to drop in resources with a little explanation what it is, because just saying just dropping a resource and not telling them why this is important, and that sort of thing, because and there's a lot of other job search count like C6.org here in San Francisco Bay, that Hamid Sadat's organization specifically for tech folks. Lino, you should check that out. And just, I mean, I found out about all these during the pandemic when my longtime job disappeared all of a sudden. And I wanted to change industries too. But and I mean, John, what you do, but if you're a place where people can find out about resources that matter to them quickly, because people find that they're all of a sudden, well, oops, I haven't had to do it. Like I hadn't had to look for a job in 11 years, and it was like, oh.
Great. Well, thank you for that, and thanks for all your suggestions. I really appreciate it. We are at time. I want to respect your the rest of your day. So thank you guys for showing up, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Great.
great day.